afternoon if you're joining us from Australia, and Sabah El Khair, Ahlan wa Sahlan to all of our guests who are joining us from the United Arab Emirates and other parts of the region today. Today is indeed the last of our four-part series, so welcome. Welcome to the Dubai FDI Advantage Business Webinar Series, which is a collaboration between Dubai FDI, the Australian Business Council of Dubai, and the Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry, fondly known as AACCI. My name is Jessica Swan. I'm the National Board Secretary and the National Secretariat of the Chamber. It is indeed a great pleasure to be moderating our fourth and final series today. Just a little housekeeping. As many of you who have already joined us, you'd be well familiar by now that we would ask that you keep your microphones on mute. I think that we've got it covered from our side with our tech guru, Carla Reese, who is ensuring that everything will go smoothly from that end, but just to keep that in mind. You'll also note that we are running a poll, as we have with the last 3 weeks. This is very important for us because we're then able to take the information that you provide to us and to be able to connect to you all of the necessary contacts that we've been able to gain. Now that's just popped up on my screen, so I'm imagining that that's possibly popped up on yours as well. So if you could please take the time over the next hour and a half, we would be very much grateful. As I've said, it is our fourth and our final, and we're talking technology. And we're joined by leaders from across the tech sector in Dubai, from the Dubai International Financial Centre, Smart Dubai, the Dubai Future Foundation, and Dubai FDI. It is also a great pleasure to be able to welcome some very important guests today. His Excellency, Mr. Abdallah Al Sabusi, the UAE's Ambassador to Australia. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you, Your Excellency. We're also welcoming His Excellency Fahad Al Gagawi, the CEO of Dubai FDI, and also His Excellency Saad Al Awadi, who's the CEO of Dubai Exports. Now, tech underpins all that we do now more than ever, and technology is elevating us up and beyond the challenges of COVID-19. It has this way of circumventing some of the big macro factors which have impacted traditionally on businesses. It's the juncture where creativity and entrepreneurship meet, and indeed, it really is the centre of the focus of each of our webinars in this series. If you think about it, over the last 3 weeks, this week being the fourth, we've looked at food, agribusiness, health and logistics. Now, at the heart of all of these, the important sectors is technology. So we're bringing it all together today. Through technology, we're connecting, we're innovating, and we're growing locally and globally. Now, this is our reality, and it's the reality of our children and all the generations to come, long after we've planted our technology seeds today. So what are we growing for the generations to come? Today, as I've said, it's all about technology, and I would urge that you get your technology on. You know the Q&A function at the bottom. You're very welcome. In fact, we urge you to send your questions through to our guests today, and we'll do our very best to answer some of those questions. Because we're diving into some of the best that Dubai has to offer in technology. And through our digital network, we connect you with our guests to enable an innovation conversation and to open up opportunities that will best suit you. So to open today's webinar, we are indeed very privileged to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abdallah Al Sabusi, UAE's Ambassador to Australia. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you, Jessica, for the kind introduction. I'm honored to be among you. It's always nice to see good friends from the UAE. And as we talk about an important aspect of the relationship between our two countries. Of course, many of you know that the UAE is Australia's largest trading partner in the whole Middle East and North Africa. Our relationship this year, we celebrate 45 years of official diplomatic relations. I think, first of all, let me start from bigger, larger perspective. The reason I mentioned these facts and figures because they are important. They help us view the possibilities for the future. Because when you think about areas of cooperation, UA is one of the largest investors in Australia. We see eye to eye on many issues, not regionally but internationally. Like I said, our trade relations are strong, but moving forward, I think there are certain areas which will have greater focus, I think, in the future. One of these areas is, of course, technology. The UAE has been a leader in the region when it comes to innovation and leading investments in technology. Not just from the government perspective, which was one of the first to announce Minister of AI, or the many other initiatives that the government took, but also in the private sector. If we saw, for example, the announcement of we're talking COVID-19. We're still dealing with the repercussions. We're assessing how we move forward. The UAE yesterday or day before announced the creation of a national airline, a new one. So I think this speaks to the possibilities in the future. We, I think, have dealt. The wise government have dealt very well with dealing, with the COVID-19 and how we move forward. There is a strategic outlook laid out there, and we can benefit a lot from our relation with Australia. Australian companies can find great opportunities in the UAE. The UAE per capita is the largest donor country in the world. We're very proud of that fact. And during the COVID-19 response, our COVID-19 aid have reached over 59 countries. Milestone of 1 million first responders have been hit yesterday or day before, and we are proud of all these things. As we look into the future, I think this area of technology is going to be of great importance. I wish you luck and success. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to hearing fellow participants. Thank you so much, Jessica. Back to you.
Your Excellency, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. That's His Excellency, Mr. Abdullah Al-Sabusi, UAE's ambassador to Australia. Gosh, I think that's almost breaking news that the UAE has announced setting up a new airline. See, this is the thing. It's about planting seeds. And whilst we're going through this incredible time of change, there is so much good that's happening as well. But you've got to keep your ear to the ground, and technology is at the heart of all of that, as we've been talking about. Now, to provide our keynote speech, an industry leader and a great supporter of this webinar series, the CEO of Dubai FDI and the president of WIPA, the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies that represents over 130 member countries, it is indeed a great pleasure to welcome His Excellency Fahad Al-Gagawi, CEO of Dubai FDI.
Thank you, Jessica. Good afternoon and good morning, so different time zones. Thank you for everyone. Your Excellency, Ambassador Al-Sabusi, thank you for joining us again. This is a great momentum taking place with Australia being the first nation country that we do a series of webinars. Before we start, this is the fourth week of we're meeting virtually together, and it has been a tremendous journey into discovering the different areas that we were focusing on, especially today with the technology being the forefront of everything going on around us. A big shout and thank you to AACCI for being a great host, and also the Australian Business Council in Dubai for jointly also hosting the 4 webinar series. Together, UAE and Australia had built a extremely exemplary and extremely successful partnership over the last few decades. Today, the UAE remains Australia's largest trade partner in the Middle East, with a non-oil trade of almost 4 billion Australian dollars. This is the 2 countries host. While looking at connectivity, we have almost 100 flights per week between the 2 countries. As well as UAE is home to nearly almost 25,000 Australians, and over 350 Australian businesses are very active in the country, including construction, financial, professional services, tourism, education, as well as technology industry. UAE as well invested in Australia in many different areas, especially in the agri-business, tourism, as well as the healthcare sector. We would like to focus on where we are today, and special momentum of technology is taking all over the world, where communication is happening through the different platforms. And this is what is not related only to COVID. This started many years ago, but we saw the importance of it very highly in these days. And we are like everyone else. This is how many of our businesses and part of life have changed through technology. We know that a persistent focus on economic diversification and vision to grow into a knowledge economy have been, and one of the best actually in the world, have opened the remarkable opportunities for the UAE in terms of ideas, enterprises, people from all over the world. As a unique feature of the UAE economy, its openness and resilience have seen the country maintaining growth in international outlook through global downturns and setbacks, not only for this crisis that we're seeing, but many different times the UAE came back stronger. When we will talk about Dubai, Dubai continued to strengthen its advantages as the most efficient gateway for a global trading hub, connecting 2.4 billion consumers across a large region spanning in the Middle East, North and East Africa, Indian subcontinent, and the CIS. We believe that every crisis has also a certain part of positivity, which are into looking at new things to be developed, new terms that we didn't look at, new ideas. And this is what we've been seeing. And this has been also a successful momentum in every crisis we saw in Dubai and UAE. That test also new approaches and launch new initiatives, as well as enhance competitiveness and ensure sustainable growth for the business. We think while everything going on around us, the whole world will come and prevail. And this is definite because humankind have had a lot of challenges. And these challenges are also not new to UAE and Dubai. While we're looking at that, we also have to look at what have we done through this or for these type of challenges. And planning is one of the great success that UAE government have pushed together. The advantages of that is the stronger strategy that have been put for the smart government move and smart city in Dubai, as well as the government of UAE, the federal government. The implementation have started, if we will look into that, in year 2000 with the launch of Dubai Internet City. That was a visionary in that time. And looking at the success of where we are today, we are the single most important hub on technology for the Middle East and MENA region. As well as the smart government implementation have ensured this a smooth transformation from office to home for almost all businesses and the whole government in UAE. As well as mentioning the UAE overall important strategy of implementation of Industry 4.0 with every technological bit on it was also a remarkable point of developing the whole country to be a future fit. And this is very important for us when we look at technology centers, if we look at, because it's not only the place itself, it's the place, the people, the infrastructure, as well as the strategies and policies put in place to attract investment and make sure that businesses will really flourish because the ecosystem is there. When we look at that, we look at a government looking, adhering to business needs before it comes and making sure that we arrange the right circumstances and environment for such technology business to really come together and use the platform called Dubai. Just quickly before closing, I would like to mention that UAE is has one of the highest developed infrastructure the infrastructure and the technological infrastructure. We call it always that this smart infrastructure is important for the future, but also important for businesses to start looking at the region itself. When we look at the region, we look at the Middle East and North Africa. Until 2030, we expect $3 trillion worth of infrastructure projects needed. So that opens a wide range of opportunities for developers, for many different businesses, including technology that will be in the heart of such development. Dubai will play that role of platform to include such businesses and make sure that connectivity is happening with these opportunities in the different markets around us. Again, I would like to thank everyone here, and I would like to wish my colleagues who will do the presentation after me the best of luck, and thank you for everyone participated in this. Thank you again for making this 4 series to come to a successful end, hopefully with a grand finale of keeping the best for last. Technology is for everyone to really start, elaborating from my fellow colleagues. And thank you so much for listening to me.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for being able to join us again today. It has indeed been such a lovely experience over the last 4 weeks with you, and of course getting to know all of the wonderful opportunities that exist in Dubai. And as you've rightly just said, technology really just has this way of bringing it all together. That indeed was His Excellency Fahad Al Gagawi, the CEO of Dubai FDI. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we were going to be welcoming His Excellency Saad Al Awadi, but we believe he may have just been called to a board meeting. But if he does get the opportunity to join back with us, we will indeed reconnect with him, and we'll be bringing him his presentation, his short speech that he was going to be giving about Dubai Exports. Of course, very important, because Dubai Exports, under the Dubai economy, supports international companies based in Dubai to move their exports from Dubai right across the region and beyond. Very, very important, moving exports into tertiary markets. So Dubai Exports plays a terribly important role in that regard. So if we do manage to get him back during today's webinar, we will indeed welcome him in. Now, shortly we'll be hearing from our very first panelist today, Mr. Salman Jaffrey. He's the Chief Business Development Officer for the DIFC, Dubai International Financial Centre, for those who are joining us for the first time and perhaps considering moving into the UAE market. But of course, all of these acronyms are going to start to become exceptionally familiar to you if this is a new area of export for you. But first, before we go to Mr. Salman Jaffrey, let's just take a quick look at technology Dubai style. Of course, that was a snapshot of technology Dubai style. Like many of us, I also had the great privilege of being able to live in Dubai for quite a number of years. And in fact, I was there at the time that the DIFC was actually being built, working in broadcasting there. And it was very, very exciting. And in fact, it's been over the last 4 weeks of this webinar series that I've learned so much more about Dubai. And one of the interesting things I learned is that the DIFC, they have their own legal jurisdiction. And of course, that really opens up, and certainly in terms of contracts, that opens up opportunities for those people who do come from countries where we base our legal system on common law practices. So really interesting things happening there at the DIFC. And it's indeed a pleasure in the final of our 4th in the series to welcome Mr. Salman Jaffrey, the Chief Business Development Officer from the DIFC. Welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. I trust that the sound quality and the image, everything seems to work. Super. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Dubai International Financial Center, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be part of today's conversation. Like many of my esteemed colleagues, I'm a proud member of Team Dubai. We work together to drive economic growth for Dubai as well as for the UAE. For the next maybe 10 minutes or so, what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about 3 areas of conversation which I think will be useful to drive today's discussion. One is to give you a little bit of an overview of where Dubai fits into the region's economic structures and why is it that Dubai and DIFC are interesting that way, and why is it that we create value. Second thing I'll talk about is the digital opportunity, which is on everyone's mind and obviously a key driver of future economic growth. And then number 3, I'll talk a little bit about how we've been able to scale and drive success. So before I begin, it's worth recapping for many of you who may not be as familiar with the DIFC, that we are now in our 16th year of existence. We are a financial free zone, and ourselves a great innovation as a business model derived 15 or 16 years ago to drive economic growth and diversification away from hydrocarbons. And as Jessica mentioned, the premise of the DIFC is essentially we are a physical, legal, and regulatory carve-out with our own laws and regs operating within Dubai and UAE. And we are home now today to 25,000 people and over 2,500 companies, but I'll tell you more about that. So if we could go to the first slide, please. So what you'll hear today from myself as well as my colleagues is a story about opportunity that places Dubai at the center of a very, very large market opportunity that we often use multiple acronyms for. The acronym we like is MIASA, which is Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. And effectively, there are a couple of key takeaways here, which is this is a large, young, and growing market that will be looking to consume financial services and many other infrastructure services for decades to come, which is the premise for it. And we think that, well, we know that Dubai has done a great job at positioning itself in this market. So let me just spend a few minutes talking through three ideas here. Next slide, please. Regardless of how you slice it or dice it, the region in which we find ourselves is large. It is large and it is young by all cuts, whether it is Middle East, Africa, Middle East, North Africa, whether it's the GCC, whether it's MEASA. And this is a contrast to the demographics that you see in Europe, in North America, and certainly in Asia, where you have an inversion of the situation we have. We have the bulk of our population that is young and growing. Next slide, please. Now, it's worth putting our relationship with Australia into context. You've heard about the long-standing economic ties, both in terms of trade and commerce. It's worth mentioning that our physical positioning in this large market is significantly assisted by Emirates Airlines, which traditionally has had incredible connectivity globally, but also in Australia with flights to Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, and Sydney. And hopefully over the coming weeks and months, we'll be restoring the frequency and volume of that travel. Great connectivity, great volume, great access, and great employment relationships with our friends in Australia. Next slide, please. Part of what brings this to life, and Fahad mentioned this as well, and we could spend so many hours on this slide alone, but the UAE, as well as Dubai, has invested a lot of time in making this place attractive for people to come and live and work. And really, without talent, you can't have industry. And that has been a hallmark of our success. I mean, you know, by quality of living standards, first in MENA, MasterCard, global destination cities, fourth globally, in terms of education, in terms of talent and competitiveness, very high rankings in the Middle East and growing, increasing, improving rankings globally. And so what you have, if I summarize this section, is a story where we've positioned Dubai in the middle of a very, very large market opportunity. And the DIFC, of course, plays its role in that. Next slide, please. Super. So I've talked about the physical connectivity. What we're seeing now effectively is a super transition from traditional economics to digital economics. And not surprisingly, COVID has accelerated this pivot from traditional to digital. It's important for me to say that one does not come at the expense of the other, but the new, the digital, whether it's fintech and financial services, almost necessarily relies on the success of conventional and traditional business, as I'll show you. And so next slide, please. So this data is well known. We are a crossroads economy, and between our airlines and our port, we are a place of physical trade. This is our legacy. This is our ethos. A lot of trade goes through here, including significant trade from China. Our port, Jebel Ali, is spectacular. It's world-class. And all of this really has continued to underpin the flow of people and goods to Dubai. Next slide, please. But what we're seeing now is a really interesting transition. I won't spend too much time on the slide, but essentially, in addition to this flow of physical goods, we're seeing rapid change in behaviors. We're seeing increased use of e-commerce and being comfortable with digital as a technology. We have seen incredible use of smartphones, and this is a phenomenon in the Middle East, and the story in Africa is well known, where the mobile phone has essentially sidestepped traditional infrastructure. And of course, one of the unique things about this region, because of our labor market, is we are on the sending end of at least 5 of the biggest remittance corridors in the world, between here and India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Philippines, and several other places. So this means opportunity for new innovation, technology, and businesses. And indeed, that's what we're seeing at the DIFC. If I could get to the next slide, please. And so this brings me to an interesting pivotal point in the conversation. The way in which success works is when you have government support, which we've had. We've been blessed by forward-looking government that is future-oriented and is very ambitious. But we have the right strategy and we have the right regulations in place to be able to facilitate this explosion in digital economies and financial technology. So on the left, we see a ranking for the DIFC as 7th in places that are going to be important for fintech. The top part of the slide refers to initiatives that we have undertaken in the region to attract digital talent. So we had the region's first fintech accelerator called the Hive. It's globally ranked. It's been around now. We're in our 4th year. Partnerships with global accelerators like Startup Bootcamp. We have innovation licenses where we incentivize people to come here and develop ideas. And the leadership of Dubai earlier this year announced ambitions for a Dubai Future District. I can tell you that the DIFC over 2 years ago announced, and we have a $100 million fintech fund. And by the end of this year, the plan is to scale that up to $300 million at the Dubai level. So there's a lot happening. But all of this happens in conjunction with, builds on the strength of regulations that we have from our regulator, which is called the DFSA. We're the first in the region to introduce crowdfunding regs. Very, very interesting, very, very innovative. We have the first comprehensive payments and money services regulations as of April 1st of this year, which has resulted in the top companies in the world in the region coming here, right? There's a focus on cyber intelligence as well. So if you are somebody in Australia or in Asia Pac that has an innovation, an idea, we're a great place to come and explore and scale that. Next slide, please. So let me conclude with a couple of key messages here. In the previous 15 years, we've done a really good job on the back of traditional conventional business, right? Financing all that trade. We created clusters here that, as I mentioned earlier, now exceed 25,000 people and the number of firms here. And this is world class, and we've been ranked. And now the future is really about innovation and about that pivot to the future of finance. Next slide, please. So I talked about trade. It's worth mentioning for those of you who are perhaps more familiar with conventional finance that the DIFC has, if you look at banks, asset managers, insurance company, law firms, we have everybody here. Because of the regulations that we have, because of the infrastructure, the soft and hard infrastructure, because of the umbrella that Dubai gives us in terms of being a tremendous place to live, these companies have financed all of that amazing trade that I talked about, of physical goods and services. Next slide, please. But what's really amazing, Fahad talked about Dubai and UAE constantly reinventing ourselves. We are starting to see that same scaling success, not just in conventional finance or traditional business, but also in financial technology, right? Now, this number keeps changing because the pace of innovation continues, but we think there's over 400 plus fintechs in the GCC. Easily, more than half are in Dubai. And as of today, actually, that number is probably north of 170 plus are in the DIFC. And what this simply means is that using the power of Dubai and using the power of our platform and our rules and regs, we're able to replicate the scale that we enjoyed in conventional business. And that's going to help drive job creation, growth, and innovation for Dubai and for UAE. Next slide, please. We can skip this one. Thanks. Let me conclude with a forward-looking view to set the theme for the rest of today, which is the ambitions that Dubai has and the UAE has always been about the future and always been about growth. We have had tremendous scaling success in financial services. We've created jobs. We've driven economic growth. We are now seeing that same success, that same pattern being repeated for fintech. Fintech is going to expand into the digital agenda. And ultimately, what we're seeing already now is the rolling out of the future of finance. And our ambition, with support from Team Dubai, as well as our colleagues and partners in Australia, is to drive that future of finance from Dubai. Thank you for your time.
Salman, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so very much. It's Mr. Salman Jaffrey, who is the Chief Business Development Officer with the Dubai International Financial Centre, fondly known as the DIFC. I loved some of the things that Salman was saying there, using the power of Dubai and its rules and regulations to drive this pace of innovation and the scaling up. And that's certainly something that I can really relate to. It's just this incredible vibe, this energy that really is quite second to none. I certainly remember, in a broadcasting sense, coming back to Australia after having experienced what was just meteoric rise in the digital uptake, which I saw in Dubai whilst I was there, and then to come back to Australia, where we were very much still in that traditional space. So that drive, that energy, I've certainly picked up on a lot of that same energy from what Salman has just shared with us. So thank you very, very much. Now, just picking up on the future, focusing constantly on Dubai's future, which is very much its past, the past 45 years, and indeed, no doubt, very much the future. I absolutely love this next topic that we're looking at, being smart and happy. What do the two have in common? You'd much rather be smart and happy, right? Well, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai, he said that this is his objective, to make Dubai the happiest city on earth. But what does technology have to do with smart and happy? Well, Smart Dubai will be the paperless, sustainable smart city of the future by 2021. We're talking next year. Now, this is all about what Smart Dubai is going to be talking to us today about, and it's indeed a pleasure to welcome Ms. Alia Al-Mour, the Director of Marketing from Smart Dubai. Very warm welcome to you.
Hi, thank you, Jessica. Good morning for people in Dubai and good afternoon for everyone in Australia, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I would like to thank the Dubai FDI team for giving me the opportunity to show our guests today how Dubai is truly redefining its governance model in order to embrace the fourth industrial revolution and establish itself as the innovation, startup, entrepreneurship, and the digital capital of the MENA region. Next slide, please. Given birth to a small initiative in our leadership's executive office, Smart Dubai was given only one goal by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai, which is to make Dubai the happiest city on earth. So a lot of you right now, I'm sure they'll be surprised in terms of, what is the connection between happiness and innovation along with the fourth industrial revolution. So from day one, our vision was to build an inclusive, holistic, and most importantly, a citizen-centric smart city. In short, we are leveraging the power of technology to redesign everyday city experiences in order to make sure that there are higher standards of living that are leading to higher levels of happiness amongst residents and visitors in Dubai. And some of you may know, and also my colleague Salman Jaffrey has mentioned earlier, Dubai is a city that's called home for over 200 nationalities. So as a government entity, how do we decide on strategies, on initiatives, legislations that are all equally and positively impact everyone in the city? Therefore, as a solution, in May 2016, we have launched a scientific approach and a very particular framework, and we called it the Dubai Happiness Agenda, which studies the various needs of people in the city, establishes a cultural baseline, and helps us create policies and launch strategies to solve some of the biggest everyday concerns of the average resident and visitor of Dubai. Next slide, please. So we ask ourselves a lot of questions constantly. What have we learned so far? And our learnings from the happiness agenda, they have helped us establish that there are three primary roles for a government that should have today. One is transforming citizen experiences, two, embracing technologies, and three, building a data ecosystem. Next slide, please. So the number one pain point that is expressed by every resident in Dubai is interaction with the government services and the numerous and endless service center visits, the long waiting lines, the unnecessary travels, and the piles of paperwork that are extremely time-consuming tasks, and most importantly, to highlight that are not environmentally friendly at all. And honestly, as a government employee myself, I boldly say that in today's highly digitized world, humans shouldn't be okay with being told to act as a data transfer tool for government entities. And therefore, in February 2018, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Crown Prince of Dubai and the Chairman of the Dubai Executive Council, launched the Dubai Paperless Strategy. Next slide, please. The Dubai Paperless Strategy will ensure that government to individual services are 100% digital, with no paper being used for internal processes or any customer-facing transactions. And also that we envision that when we have completely digitized all of the services by 2021, we will annually eliminate the use of over 1 billion pieces of paper that are estimated to 250 million US dollars in cost savings, 125 million hours in time savings, and 130,000 trees in environmental savings. And just to put that number into perspective, that the 130,000 trees is 5 times the size of the Central Park in New York. Next slide, please. With over 300 services being digitized, we do not expect that our residents and visitors will download over 300 different mobile apps. That's why Smart Dubai has been working with all of our government entities, integrating and digitizing their respective services and building a uniform look and feel for their digital presence. So all of these services are today being offered through an application called Dubai Now. It's a single mobile and web app as well that will soon have all of the Dubai government services to individuals. Currently, the application hosts over 120 services for more than 30 different government and private sector. And there are a lot of examples that are currently live on the app, which is renewal of car registrations, managing residency permits, paying for petrol in a contactless way through the app when at a petrol station, digitally enrolling children in schools and signing the school contract with KHDA, and last, the COVID-19 updates, including safety measures taken and issued by the UAE government. Next slide, please. Due to the level of identification involved when basically accessing all of these city services, I am sure that a lot of you may be wondering how secure is this particular process? Therefore, in October 2018, and in partnership with TRA, which is the Telecoms Regulatory Authority of the UAE, we launched the UAE Pass. UAE Pass is the national digital identity for any resident of the UAE, which allows users to digitally access all federal and local government services using a single set of login credentials. More importantly, UAE Pass also provides users with a safe, secure, and digital signing capability, allowing them to sign documents, legal documents digitally. Next slide, please. And basically, though digitizing is the best current term solution to transforming citizens' experiences, we probably also want to understand the power of emerging technologies such as blockchain and AI, and what do they hold? And how would they help cement Dubai as the digital capital of the region? And with that drive in mind, in October 2016, we have launched the Dubai Blockchain Strategy. And the strategy rests on 3 pillars: the government efficiency, industry creation, and international leadership. And when it comes to government efficiency, working with government entities and the private sector as well, and all of them together, we come together as partners in order to identify what are the most impactful use cases that can be developed for the city. And when it comes to industry creation, we provide the infrastructure platform, the legal policies, and network to build a blockchain ecosystem that can eventually self-sustain and keep growing in the future. And the final pillar, which is the international leadership, we look into how to make sure that we establish Dubai as the global leader in knowledge development and implementation of the blockchain technology. Next slide, please. And today, I am very proud to say that our network of government and private sector partners are working on 24 use cases across 8 industry sectors in Dubai. Next slide, please. And to be honest, our efforts will make us very happy and proud. They haven't gone unnoticed, with CNBC crowning us the blockchain capital of the world. in 2017, and the Smart Cities Expo Barcelona, they've awarded us with the prestigious City Project Award as well in 2017. Next slide, please. In addition to blockchain and in alignment with the UAE's national AI strategy, Smart Dubai launched its own AI roadmap in order to identify and develop use cases for AI implementation across the city of Dubai. These use cases cover all aspects of city services, from police to security, land development, education, and also it covers environmental services. The AI Lab is a vital innovation testbed and important in building competency within the government around this fast-paced technology. Through 2018, we ran 20 workshops identifying over 100 possible use cases of AI within Dubai government. We shortlisted the top 43 use cases, and today, all of them are building proof of concept and pilots for them in partnership with other government entities as well. Next slide, please. With AI, again, when it comes to AI, we as a government entity, we wanted to make sure that we provide the right guidance for all entities implementing this particular emerging technology. And we wanted to ensure that all AI applications developed in Dubai in particular are built in an ethical manner. Therefore, in January 2019, we have launched the Ethical AI Toolkit, which includes, the AI Toolkit includes principles and guidelines to be followed for the ethical development of any AI application that's being worked on in Dubai. Along with the guidelines, we have also developed a self-assessment toolkit. And that self-assessment tool, it allows anyone implementing AI to self-assess their performance against a set of criteria, which can take together in order to make sure that there is a proper, and assures them there's a proper ethical approach when putting these principles together. The process uses the data from the self-assessment tool to create a positive feedback loop with them using the developing AI. And we believe that we are the first city to set out such a voluntary approach that will help businesses and governments create fair, explainable and accountable and ultimately trusted AI systems that manage the tension between innovation and potential societal values. And as we know that AI technology is still evolving, we have also formed a board with local and international members, including the likes of Microsoft, Google, to help us continuously revise the AI ethical guidelines. And for those who are actually interested in viewing our guidelines, you can find our ethical AI toolkit on smartdubai.ae. Next slide, please. Finally, the last key activity I'll be focusing on today is the inception. Like ever since the inception of Smart Dubai, we wanted to make sure that Dubai is built as has a holistic data ecosystem. It is commonly known and agreed upon that data is the fuel of the future, and therefore is the key ingredient for the growth of emerging technologies today. But what we're trying to do is we want to make sure that we harness the full potential of data and we can deliver great value for the city. And in Dubai, we have taken all-inclusive approach to building the city's data ecosystem, looking into data governance, infrastructure, and ecosystem engagement. We have created data sharing policies for the government and private sector and built the Dubai Pulse, which is an open data sharing platform. It hosts over 500 different government data sets, which can be accessed by anyone across the globe. We are also launching the decentralized data platform in order to ensure and we encourage the exchange of data between the government and the private sector. Next slide, please. And finally, as knowledge sharing is a key pillar for us here at Smart Dubai, I would like to conclude by inviting you all to join the Smart Cities Global Network, which brings together leading smart city experts, government leaders, academia, NGOs, and other individuals on one particular platform to discuss the best practices that are there for that are included in smart city building, and what is being implemented across the globe that all of us can benefit from. And that was my last slide. So thank you again for having me and for having this webinar and taking the time to hear the Smart Dubai journey on the digital transformation. Thank you very much.
Alia, thank you so much. That's Alia Al Moor, who is the Director of Marketing with Smart Dubai. Alia, that was really, really wonderful. And I think for many of us, when we think about the word success, I think for a lot of people, and certainly through many decades to this date, we often equate success to economics and financial success. But I think what technology is now doing, and because of the state of the world at the moment and where we're all going into the future, there's something very special that I'm actually getting out of both your presentation and also Salman's from the DAFC earlier. And that is, there is this essence of activating humanity through technology. And so the ethics, teaching ethics of artificial intelligence, wow. And this is certainly something that, this is where I see technology going in the future, and to think that this is absolutely pivotal, where the leader of Dubai has made this an essential aspect of the city's development. Is, look, it must be extraordinary to work in that kind of an environment and to live under that kind of leadership. It's certainly very inspiring to listen to these developments. Coming up next, we're talking about who the future belongs to. So the future belongs to those who can imagine, who can design, and who can execute. This is the vision statement of Dubai Future Foundation, which is a manifestation of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum's vision to institutionalize future shaping. So to help us with this, so we can understand a little bit more about the future belonging to those who can imagine, design, and execute, it is indeed a great pleasure to welcome Mr. Ghaith Rahman, who is the Senior Project Manager and Programs with Dubai Future Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think you described DFF a lot better than I can, and I can skip that introduction slide once we get to it. So just a brief intro about myself before we begin. My name is Ghaith, and I lead programs with Dubai Future Foundation. And I'll get to what programs mean in a second. And I also lead the Regulations Lab within Dubai Future Foundation, which is a joint effort between Dubai Future Foundation and the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs on the Future, designed to create new markets for emerging technologies in the UAE. But I'll get to that as well. Just to start with our mission and vision, our mission is really to, like you said, Jessica, is to imagine, inspire, and design Dubai's future. And this stems from the belief that while there's a lot to be done now, that we do need to be planning for the future, and we cannot do it alone, which is why the ecosystem of Dubai Future Foundation doesn't just include the government entities in Dubai, but it also includes a wide spectrum of private sector innovation labs. And the capacity by which they exist within our ecosystem is both on a virtual and physical level in Emirates Towers. And their mission is not to work on everyday business challenges and problems, it's to plan out what their new business models and their new technologies that they leverage for these new business models and their go-to-market innovation would look like in the next 5 years. So it's not too far ahead in terms of looking at 10 to 15 years margins, you're looking at immediate future. And it's usually trying to leverage new business models and emerging technologies. And in a way, all that falls into the main goal of making Dubai a leading city of the future. Next slide, please. So if you look at all of our initiatives, you might have seen bits and pieces of that, of them being announced left and right. But just to give them all context, it really goes back to the way that we've structured the mission statement, which is around future foresight and research and disseminating that information under the imagination field and under the design. And this is where my work predominantly takes place, is where we execute on that. So we work closely with our government partners and the private sector partners, Smart Dubai being one of them, around working on how do we take their business challenges and finding the right solutions, which typically are underpinned by technology, which is on the emerging side, to solve for them. And then on the execution side, like I said, government is a huge partner, but we also have a host of private sector entities like Pfizer, Procter & Gamble, Emirates Airlines, which is part of the Aviation X Lab, and they are partners with Airbus, Thales, GE, and a few other partners as well. So the whole combination of all this is what really sets the stage for Dubai Future Foundation to play a massive role in Dubai's agenda. Next slide, please. So the premise of all this, and the reason why we have all these players, is that the focus is to how can we start having the most interesting and exciting experiments in Dubai. And that goes again from the government agenda to the private sector agenda, whether they want to look at new technologies such as drones, robotics, AI and blockchain, and how do they really implement it and integrate it within the services and the products that they want to launch to the public, but also how does it impact their existence? I mean, a lot of corporates are feeling the real from the existence of small startups and technology companies that are eating away slowly at their margins and at their markets, and these corporates are typically tend to be a bit too slow to react. So they try to channel their innovation efforts through internal innovation labs, which can be quite constricting. But when you take those innovation efforts out and you put them within an ecosystem, thanks for the select transition, that was actually quite good. When you put them within an ecosystem like Area 2071, which they don't just work by themselves, but they work collectively with entrepreneurs, with technology startups, with other innovation hubs and labs from other private sector entities, and more importantly as well, the same effort and from government. That's when you have an exciting ecosystem that can create a lot of exciting things. So that's our ecosystem that underpins a lot of our efforts. And yeah, next slide, please. And this is where, again, the bulk of our work is in the design phase, which is where we design new programs and we execute them. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, a lot of these future ideas take place here within Area 2071, and the way that what we do in programs is we help the government entities and the private sector entities translate their business challenges into a global call out for entrepreneurs and companies, technology companies and startups that can help them solve for these problems. And what we do is we don't just do the matchmaking, we vet the challenge itself and we stress test it. What we do as well is we go out and we do a global call out for these companies to submit their ideas, and then we build the solution with these partners. So we handhold them all the way from the beginning till the end, and that's really where the value is, because we cover the entire innovation value chain. And one of our prime programs is the Dubai Future Accelerators, where we link government entities and their challenges with startups from around the world. We've had massive success in terms of the pilots that we've put on the ground. We've had participants from 37 countries. To name a few, Hyperloop one was one of the most successful ones, and we have quite a few others as well coming in from places like Australia as well. Next slide, please. And speaking of other types of programs that we have are boot camps and hackathons. We've had one recently with the EdTech boot camp with the Australian Trade and Investment Commission. And that was a really successful one. And the main focus with that was the local education sector, and mainly partnered and spearheaded by the Knowledge and Human Development Authority. And it saw basically 8 education startups coming in from Australia to solve for a few local challenges here in the UAE. And it just gave a flavor of the different solutions of the problems that we can have as an exchange between Australia and the UAE. Next slide, please. Unleash Live was one of the Australian companies that we've hosted under cohort 7, which is the most recent cohort for Dubai Future Accelerators. And they were working with Dubai Police around AI and machine learning. And that's a massive agenda for Dubai Police. And they were one of the successful candidates for that program. And hopefully we'll see some live pilots soon post COVID. Next slide, please. So beyond programs and beyond the programs that we build with private sector and government, we focus a lot on how can we bring some of these to life. Now, a lot of them challenge the current norm of regulations, which is why Regulations Lab exists. And ultimately, if you think about it, it's a way to make the regulations in the UAE a lot more flexible and hospitable to emerging technology. And it's also a way for us to create new markets from technologies that don't have a lot of bandwidth to do so. So drones, for example, is a massive one on our agenda. And the belief is that once you can launch a few pilots with private sector and government entities, you can actually start establishing not just the regulations for commercialization of drones, but you can actually do it and set the standards globally for using drones for various types of deliveries, other types of services like immediate response to accidents, to car accidents or health accidents on the streets. So there are so many different use cases for it. And the whole purpose of Regulations Lab is to start incubating some of these market opportunities for us to create formal markets where we invite companies from around the world to deploy these services here in the UAE. Next slide, please. And all that is really part of a much bigger effort, and Salman mentioned this earlier, which is the Dubai Future District, which is really trying to become the innovation mile, the innovation hub for everything that has to do with exponential innovation coming in from government, private sector, and specifically startups. And that's the bulk of it. And next slide, please, will explain a little bit more what the roles are. So basically the roles are distributed between DIFC, Emirates Towers, which is represented by Dubai Future Foundation, and Dubai World Trade Center. And each of them is playing a very different role, but together the idea is to create this massive new level of economy for innovation-driven enterprises, and really to bring in impactful innovation to the UAE and to start having a new business models from it. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits that you'll have as a startup, and that's again, we try to solve for startups because we do believe that they are the backbone of everything that we're going to do in the future. And then if we enable that, that becomes an important, not just a revenue source for us, but actually it's a massive economic growth impact for us here in Dubai and the UAE. And the benefits are quite varied. The Regulations Lab is a massive plus. We've seen a lot of interest coming in, not just from corporates, but also from startups who want to deploy their pilots. So that's a very unique proposition that we provide as part of Dubai Future Foundation, but also as part of the Dubai Future District. Next slide. That's it. That's the main focus. Hope it was helpful, and I hope to see many of you in applying for new programs in the future. If you are a startup, or if you're a collaborator, if you are part of the private sector and you want to launch programs around emerging technology, we're more than happy to speak with you. And of course, the most exciting topic is regulation. So we're more than happy to engage with you on that as well. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for that fantastic presentation. That's Mr. Faith Rahman, who is the Senior Project Manager for Programs at the Dubai Future Foundation. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, you can click on the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. I know that there's a couple of questions that have come through. We will shortly be getting to those questions, so please do feel free to get in touch with us that way. You can direct your question to anyone on the panel, and we'll be getting to that after our final speaker today. Now, Dubai is taking a regional leadership position in the development of a green economy. Now, this year, you might be very interested to know that over $27 billion has been invested into the Dubai Green Fund to support and finance clean energy projects this year. Now, this is really important when we think, I was speaking earlier when we started the webinar about planting seeds. What are we doing to plant seeds for generations to come? I have a little boy, he's 6 years old, his name is Karim, and I am not surprised if he's going to follow in Mama's footsteps and move across to Dubai at some stage because of all of this innovation, because of that can-do attitude and the resilience and the optimism that we're seeing, not just in our presentations today, but this is indeed something that I very much hold dear to heart about Dubai. And I know that anybody joining the webinar today as a participant, and of course our panelists, all of those who have been involved in the production of this 4-part series, they all feel exactly the same way. There's a spirit about the innovation that just fills you with this can-do attitude. Now, without any further ado, our final speaker for today, who can talk to us about green projects, who can talk to us about the world's first aerotropolis. I didn't even know that such a word existed, an aerotropolis. It's Dubai South that has the first world's aerotropolis targeting 220 million passengers. So there's an extraordinary amount of technology and innovation there. And of course, very important to be able to hear an update on the World Expo 2021 and to help us with all of these topics on innovation and much more it's indeed a pleasure to welcome Mr. Ibrahim Ahli, who is the Director of Investment Promotion Division with Dubai FDI. Welcome to the program, Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Jessica. It's a great pleasure to be in this webinar, the series of four, for the most important market that we consider, which is Australia. I'll just go through a couple of important points before going into the Dubai Advantage presentation, because I thought they are also to recap of what our colleagues have already presented, Mr. Salman, Ms. Alia, and Mr. Ghaith. Dubai has already taken a great strides in its efforts to attract talent and capital into promoting cutting-edge technologies. And this has been a benchmarking study by the Financial Times FDI Markets in 2017 that was revealed, mentioning Dubai being emerged as the world's top-ranked location in attracting FDI technology transfer. And this is in the artificial intelligence and robotics sector. Also, according to data from our Dubai FDI monitor, medium and high-tech projects have attracted 184 FDI projects in the first 9 months of last year. This was creating 12,640 plus new jobs. A 10X, one of our colleagues have already mentioned about it. This 10X initiative is really being implemented under the supervision of the Dubai Future Foundation. This is really to put Dubai a decade ahead of other cities in terms of disruptive innovation. And there are already a couple of things mentioned by such innovation disruption by Mr. Ghaith. The strategy is to connect the world's most innovative companies and leading government entities to actually work towards breakthrough solutions for the most exciting opportunities and pressing challenges. Meanwhile, Dubai Future Accelerators, which my colleague just have mentioned, their program is addressing key 21st century opportunities, including in the application of artificial intelligence, robotics, genomics, 3D printing, blockchain, biomimicry, and biotechnology. Dubai is already moving towards being the first blockchain-powered government in the world. 3D printing is also being pursued eagerly as a means to improve efficiencies. So every new building in Dubai will be a 25% 3D printed. This is by 2025. And the Dubai Health Authority is exploring the use of 3D printed prosthetic limbs, teeth, and hearing aids in public clinics and in different hospitals. So the healthcare and related technologies are top priorities in Dubai, and they have proven to be a major asset in our fight against COVID-19, which we are currently facing. The Dubai Autonomous Transportation Strategy's aim is to transform 25% of the total transportation in Dubai to autonomous mode by 2030, so in another 10 years, really. The smart transformation has also opened up vast opportunities in Dubai for financial technology companies. So my colleagues from Smart Dubai, Dubai Future Foundation, and Dubai International Financial Center have already spoke to you more about the major initiatives driving the smart transformation in the city. The youth under the age of 25 account for more than half of the MENA population. This is the Middle East and North Africa region. And they are keen to adopt the latest technologies as users, developers, and entrepreneurs. So the United Arab Emirates really ranks first in the Arab region and fourth globally in the launch and use of the 5G networks, according to the Global Connectivity Index. The UAE ICT strategy for 2021 aims to enhance broadband speed by 15 times and the number of safe servers by 20 times and subscribers by 5 times. The information and the communications technology sector is also projected to generate 45,000 job opportunities in the United Arab Emirates by 2021. So that was just a quick points I thought I would like to mention. And I'll go through the Dubai Advantage, which will give you a bigger picture of what Dubai offers. Dubai as a city, very quickly, we can say, obviously, we do not depend on the oil revenues. It's only 2% of the total GDP in Dubai, so you won't see it on the screen, really. So what you see on the screen is the other main sectors, such as wholesale and retail trade being 26%, the highest, and that is followed by the others, storage and transportation, because Dubai is all about logistics, and followed by 10.2% financial and insurance activities. Next, please. Dubai has always been #1 city in the whole of the MENA region in terms of attracting tourists and visitors. And this is just a quick statistics. Obviously, with the COVID-19, we are all aware of the whole world being on, I could say on pause really. But I'm sure it will all come back. We are very positive that things will clear and gradually business is back to normality, even here in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And by next year, we will see more and more activities of tourists coming to Dubai and enjoy the events and exhibitions and conferences. So Dubai is the gateway to the whole of the region. Now, what does that mean? It means while you are located here in Dubai, you are approached within 5 minutes radius of travel to 2.4 billion consumers. This is a direct market access that you can have. The region, the Gulf, the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, as well as the CIS market. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where Jessica was mentioning, the Aerotropolis is connecting the Dubai South. That's the second international airport, where we have also the existing Dubai International Airport, and also the Jebel Ali Free Zone. That's the shipping port. So Jebel Ali Port is already handling 19.3 million TEUs. That's the capacity, and they have been under expansion recently. So it's connecting both the shipping and the aviation together for faster movement. At the current COVID-19, we've seen how successful Emirates Airline has been moving products in and out of Australia. So we have not stopped connecting Australia with Dubai and beyond in our region. Next, please. This is just some facts and figures. Last year, we had almost 90 million passengers flying through the Dubai International Airport. It is the busiest international airport in the world. And even with the current COVID-19 situation, we have not stopped moving the cargo freight from Dubai to different parts of the world. So we are still gradually we are coming back even from now. I mean, today is the 1st of July. So Dubai United Arab Emirates have opened its airport to attract visitors and tourists coming from different parts of the world. Next, please. So Dubai as a hub, we are the hub for the world for the re-export of different products. So actually we import all sorts of products from the 6 continents, and then 80% of that is re-exported into the region and beyond, and 20% is consumed locally. Expo 2020, for main reason of COVID-19, it had to be postponed to next year. So this is the new date. It will start from 1st of October 2021. For the duration of 6 months and will conclude by 31st of March 2022. And Australia obviously have been one of the first friends and of different countries to confirm its participation. The theme is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, with the sub-themes being the mobility, sustainability, and opportunity. Next, please. This is very quick statistics on the Dubai's trade up to 2020 for the first quarter. It has always been steady, rising. Next, please. Infrastructure in Dubai is excellent. You know, the Road and Transport Authority have been continuously growing the expansion of the road network, the bridges, and so on, completing the projects, even with the current COVID-19 situation. So we have not stopped our projects. And here is just to mention about the public transport passengers for last year. It's huge, and that goes with being the smart city. It attracts more of you know, devices for the mobility of the city to be smoother for all the commuters. Next, please. So very quickly, public transport services in Dubai with metros and trams, passengers, and the taxis, and also the water taxis, the public buses, they have been all working very, very smoothly and efficiently. Next, please. So the Dubai plan for 2021 is, I think a couple of my colleagues have mentioned a few of it, and this is really for the city to be educated, healthy, innovative, and of course, happy for every individual. That's for the city to be proactive, transparent, reliable, and the innovative government, also a vibrant, tolerant for everyone. It's a multicultural society. We have 200 plus different nationalities living, working, investing in Dubai. A smart city, sustainable and healthy living for all of us. Smart city, well, I think my colleagues have given a broader picture of the smart government from by Ms. Alia. So just very quickly, 100% of government transactions will be paper-free by end of next year. So I won't go through that more because it was all mentioned by Ms. Alia. Dubai blockchain strategy, very quickly, also my colleagues have mentioned, the world's first ever government to execute all applicable transactions. This is really for Dubai to be the first the blockchain initiatives activated. Open data law, it was enacted in 2015. This is to improve the accessibility of data and encourage innovation, as well as the entrepreneurship in smart services. So there's a $4.8 billion in technology spend. Artificial intelligence, there is a pool which my colleagues have mentioned, but just to give it a little bigger picture, there is a pool of $182 billion to add into the United Arab Emirates economy by 2035 in these main sectors. While you see here also there's a financial service sector, which Mr. Salman Jafri was given his presentation on the DIFC. Healthcare is very important, $22 billion is there. Transport storage segment is because Dubai is an aviation and shipping hub and a logistics hub for the whole of this region. Next, please. Green technology, here's where Jessica was talking about Dubai being in the regional leadership position for the development of the green economy. There is a $13.7 billion. This is to be invested in 5,000 megawatt in the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar plant. This is by DEWA, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, by 2030. And there is a Dubai Green Fund. This is to support the companies to expand and in the clean energy projects by end of this year. Here, Shams Dubai. Shams means sun. So we've got plenty of sun here at this time, of course. So Shams Dubai is the first in the region by DEWA, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, to introduce the net metering for the solar power generation. Next, please. And the Dubai's renewable energy target, end of this year, to be 7%. And then you will see by 2030, in another 10 years, is to be 25% green, to go green economy, and by 2050 is 75%. Federal Science, Technology and Innovation Policy by the government is a pool of $82 billion to target 40% increase in the knowledge workers by 2021. So obviously you will see here on the right-hand side of my screen is clean energy projects, $34 billion plus the renewable energy. That's everything to do with the green economy, because it is very, very important for Dubai's government to look into further solutions for energy, waste management, water solutions, and so on. And also on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, you will see there's 11 billion for the aviation R&D and manufacturing. And also something new is $5.5 billion is for the space sector investments. Retail sector has always been an important sector for Dubai. It's in the top of the GDP's contribution for Dubai. And well, we have always been the shopping center of the region for the 2.4 billion consumers. Shopping centers and malls have all reopened, business is back as usual. And Dubai has always ranked the most important international shopping destination globally. This is by CBRE in the year 2018. Next, please. Banking and financial sector, the DIFC, I won't go through this because it was all very nicely cleared, mentioned by our colleague, Mr. Salman Jaffrey. But just the DIFC course, this is very important for everyone to know that, it has a common, the UK common law. So any company that will establish here that wants to have their agreements set by the common law, the UK common law, so it can be done through the DIFC courts. Next, please. The manufacturing sector in Dubai, this is a great opportunity for those companies who want to expand through Dubai's platform, so it's sustainable and innovative industries. And it goes into 6 main targeted industrial sectors: aerospace. Once again, we talk all about Dubai being the aviation hub, maritime, pharmaceuticals and medical equipment, aluminum and fabricated metals, fast-moving consumable goods, as well as the machinery and equipment. In the healthcare, technology is very important. Dubai has mandated an extensive healthcare insurance for all residents. So this is really a high priority investment opportunity for those companies who would be in providing medical devices and so on, and the innovations of primary care, for example, ambulatory care, urgent care clinics, mental health and rehabilitation. And of course, we have also a strategy to attract medical tourists. So this is just statistics from 2014 to 2020. And of course, there will be a slight change in the strategy for this because of the COVID-19. And definitely we will receive more and more visitors coming for the medical tourism in Dubai from 2021 onwards. So ladies and gentlemen, this was a very quick Dubai Advantage. My colleagues, Ms. Alia, Mr. Ghaith and Mr. Salman have given a broader picture of the technology sector. And we are so happy to conclude our 4th webinar with Australia, and also appreciate the hard work that has been put into these 4 webinars by our partners, the Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the Australia Business Council in Dubai, and not to forget the most important caliber that we have presenting a keynote speech, His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Subusi, the UAE Ambassador to Australia, whom have always been supportive, even when you were in your earlier post back in Los Angeles. So really, on behalf of Dubai FDI and our CEO, as well as the entire team, and behind the scene is our advisor, Mr. Al Hinton, who has worked very hard to make sure these 4 series being a very, very successful platform for different 4 sectors. Thank you very much, and we very much look forward to having you as the guest here in Dubai in the near future. Thank you so much.
Mr. Ibrahim Ahli, the Director of Investment Promotion Division with Dubai FDI. Ibrahim, thank you so very, very much for your final presentation today. It is the time for Q&A. We are running a little behind, but we will get to the questions that we've got here. If you have a question, please feel free to send that through via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So here we are. We have a question from Mr. Salman Jaffrey. Question from Mohammed Bilal. Is the DIFC looking for business sharing opportunities between the DIFC and similar international financial bodies to the likes of, please forgive me, I hope I get this, SASAKI, which is Moscow, ADGM, Abu Dhabi, etc., etc. As this is the right time for exploring synergic opportunities, cross-border business development, and tap the business investment in a bilateral manner. Salman, if you would like to answer that question to Mr. Mohammed, that would be great.
Yeah, I have sent a quick response to Mr. Mohammed with my email address so that we can talk offline about it. Naturally, we are always interested in seeking alliances and partnerships, whether regional or cross-border, and we welcome any kind of such conversations. So my information has been shared. Look forward to having that discussion.
Excellent, fantastic. And our next question comes from Melbourne, Australia. A question from Eamon. Eamon asks, how can international businesses across the tendering process of the UAE government projects mentioned in the shared video, Smart City, AI and Blockchain projects? Alia, I think this is one for you. Have we got Alia there?
Yes, yes. Hi, Jessica.
So do you want me to just repeat the question, Alia?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, so a question about the tendering process. How can international businesses access the tendering process of the UAE government projects, which have been mentioned in the video today?
I believe for that, they can access it through the Dubai Future Accelerators, which is part of the Dubai Future Foundation. I believe Ghait will be a better actually contact for that. A lot of new and upcoming business, whoever would like to establish in Dubai or enter to work with the Dubai's government, the Dubai Government Accelerator Program actually provides such a great platform for that, which is it's being led by the Dubai Future Foundation. Also, there's the Global Blockchain Challenge, which is held at the Dubai Future Blockchain Summit. Those are the two things where I can see international companies, it's a gateway for them to come and open and work with, enter basically to work with the government of Dubai.
Fantastic. And I think that this actually leads into the next question, which is, will you be sending the recording of this presentation to attendees? We will indeed have the recording available if you go to any of our LinkedIn pages. So that's Dubai FDI, the Australian Business Council of Dubai, or the Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry LinkedIn pages. So we will be posting up the recording of this after today. And of course, to all of our participants, we will be sending through the details so that you can follow up individually with each of the guests who have joined us today to really connect you, to do a bit of the digital networking, which is what's so important about today and the previous three events. And the final question today is from Karen Savara. Hi, Karen. Karen says, here from FBR Australia, what are the common challenges for new technology companies entering the United Arab Emirates?
Should I take that, or is that for someone in particular?
I think it's open to the panel. I imagine that each of you may have something to say about that. So if you'd like to start?
Let me begin with a couple of observations. So the purpose that financial free zones like the DIFC and indeed others in Dubai serve is to make the process of physical economic transition into this region a lot easier in terms of having transparent processes, easy to understand, transparent laws, etc. So in general, the access to the Dubai and regional markets, particularly if it's done, I'm familiar with obviously the DIFC and other free zones, if it's done through there, part of what we do for a living is to ease that problem. Generally speaking and generalizing, the answer also depends on the scale of companies. Smaller companies will sometimes have to work harder to attract talent. Larger companies sometimes are better able to do so. That is certainly one challenge. The other challenge that we try and help with is connectivity. If you're coming to the region cold without access to local or regional partners or relationships, that can be sometimes daunting. Again, I would recommend and urge all inbound clients and potential partners coming to the UAE and to Dubai to connect with the larger ecosystem players, such as the individuals on this panel, to make that process easier.
Thank you so much for that. Is there anyone else on the panel who would like to comment on that? The common challenges for new technology companies entering the UAE? No? I think we're good.
Hi, Jessica.
Ali,
Yeah,
did you want to comment on
I'll
that?
just add one thing. To be honest, from all of the startups that we met, there's one common challenge that's faced by a lot of them and we have worked with is legislation. However, at Smart Dubai, we're always working with the Supreme Legislative Council to amend or draft new laws that accept new technologies forms of cashless payments, and also the digital signature capabilities is one of the examples that we're having, and that's already being implemented in UAE Pass. So there are a lot of different challenges. Is also we want to see how we can overcome that. Also, the UAE federal government has built the Reg Lab, which Ghaith, I believe, already touched on, and it also provides different entities the power to test new technologies for a period of time. So that's a different good platform for you to start, and I think it will be best for some of these basically startups or technology companies to connect with Ghaith to see how they can be part of the Reg Lab.
I might just pick up on what you've said there, Ali, and it's certainly something that really triggered my thoughts when Salman was speaking earlier. In fact, all of our panelists. And that is, with such innovation at such a rapid pace, such a scaling up, I just wonder, are you attracting lawyers from all over the world with these incredible projects of innovation? Are you attracting a lot of really interesting legal minds to the country, indeed to the city of Dubai?
Let me take a crack at that. One of the attributes of the DIFC is the power of scaling an ecosystem. And so when you conduct business here, in any given day, you need legal support, you need infrastructure support, you need financial support, accounting support. And we have all of those things. We have all of the top law firms in the world in the DIFC. I mean, we can go through a list of who's who. Top 15 of the 20 or some really high number like that. So the answer is yes. And these are the ecosystem partners that help us innovate when it comes to legal regulatory change. So much like the comment mentioned earlier, we have a data protection and privacy law that is GDPR, we think is GDPR compliant, and we'll get that certification in the next 6 to 12 months. We have created with that ecosystem a new IP law as well that protects intellectual property, which is so important when you talk about innovation. So the short answer is that our legal partners, including law firms, are a critical part of the ecosystem here at the DIFC.
Salman, thank you so much for that. Alia, did you want to say something on that? No?
No, nothing from my side on that particular front. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, and Ayman has commented here, he's looking forward to connecting with you, Alia, and also Ghaith. So no doubt you'll have a connection there to talk further about innovation and connection. If of course you have a question and you haven't had a chance to ask it today, we can certainly connect you to the right people. Actually, one last question has just come through from Scott Hannah. Hello, Scott. This is for you, Salman. Can the DIFC companies in the free zone contract directly with the Dubai government, or do they need to be onshore?
So one of the hallmarks of the DIFC legal regulatory platform is that you can conduct business in and from the DIFC in a legal and regulatory capacity. So the short answer is our north of 2,500 companies here conduct business with private companies and sovereigns all over the place, including here. So there's no special requirement. Obviously, on a case-by-case basis, interaction, commercial exchange with a particular government entity has specific rules of engagement that you have to look at. But as a principle, if you're in the DIFC, you are able to conduct business in and from the DIFC essentially anywhere.
Salman, thank you so much for that. I hope, Scott, that's answered your question. As I said earlier, if there is a question you haven't had a chance to answer, or if something might come to mind after the webinar, please do get in touch with any one of our organisations. And of course, you can get all the details online by going to our websites or going to our LinkedIn pages. And indeed, you would have also received all the details in the registration for the webinar. To offer us our closing statements this afternoon, it is our dear friend Carl Dowling, who is the chairman of the Australian Business Council of Dubai. Very warm welcome, Carl.
Many thanks, Jessica. And I would just like to say, first of all, thank you to all the participants that have come on today's seminar, but there's number 4. Admittedly, we've adapted pretty well, I think, to the remote working and travel restrictions by putting the seminar series on, and testament to the Dubai FDI team for helping us putting it together. I hope it's been an insightful series and providing an introduction to Dubai, or even a reintroduction for many, as the city does move quickly. and just what Dubai can offer. I'd like to say a special thank you to the entire FDI team, especially His Excellency Farhad Gawi. He's been a speaker on every single seminar, so thank you very much, Farhad, for putting the time aside. A special thank you to His Excellency Abdullah Al Nabulsi, the UAE Ambassador to Australia. And thank you very much for joining us on today's seminar. I, of course, have to thank our participating government partners in the series, such as DIFC, Smart Dubai, Future Foundation, and Dubai Exports. Your support is very, very welcomed. And that's a massive thank you to the team at the Australian Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Australian Business Council Office for putting the series together. There's a lot of work that goes into putting the series on. There's a lot of warm-ups, practice runs to make sure it runs as smoothly as possible. So thank you to all the team, that especially Barbara, Lisa, Carl and Jessica for putting it on. As a final note from a humble Australian that's lived out here for almost coming up to 14 years now, Dubai has very much solidified itself as a gateway to not just the Middle East, but Northern Africa and the subcontinent. There's 3 billion people very close to this one city-state. The proximity is fantastic. The city punches above its weight. You'll see from all the statistics that have come out in the various webinars that it's sometimes hard to grasp just how significant Dubai has grown over the last 20, 30 years specifically, to really become a global player in trade. It's done so through innovation and adaptation, such as initiatives like Smart Dubai. The DIFC framework was a large game changer for not just Dubai, but the entire region. And you have to take your hat off to the logistics corridor and what's especially planned with Jebel Ali Free Zone, the air hub. That connection point is going to be second to none. So you can't ignore Dubai and how far it has come. Especially, as I said, the last 20 to 30 years. For many Australians that are thinking about moving out here, it's sometimes good to know that there's already 15,000 Australians that call it home. So there are 15,000 of us that live and work here. Some have been here 30 years, some have been here 3. But it is a wonderful place to live, a great place to visit. It does get a little bit warm this time of year, but it also means the winter's quite mild. You'll find a Dubai resident putting a jumper on, it's 15 degrees, treating it like it's 3. But we just get used to the warmer weather. But what is good in terms of a livability aspect is that you have the creature comforts of home, just a short step away. For those that are really nostalgic with Australia foods, there's a lot more foods coming through the supermarkets as well, I must add. But by far, probably the largest opportunity on the radar would be the Expo, which I think has been very smartly put to 2021. It's a great opportunity where Australians and businesses from all over the world can visit and see the capabilities of the city and just the connectivity it has. Through just visiting Dubai, you're not looking at the Dubai market, you're looking at a very large regional market and the connections it offers. So you do not come here with a mindset that what business can I get just in the one location. I would encourage participants after this call to engage with the councils, both AACCI and the AACCI, if you are looking further at expanding out here. Do some more homework. We're here to help. We have large memberships with various Australians and Australian companies that may be able to assist you. But I'm also sure that participant speakers that have been part of the series would also be more than happy to extend their help to just have you check the place out, see what it has to offer, and I'm sure it would be very hard to ignore. But that will be enough from me. Many thanks to all again, and especially the team for putting the seminar series on. I wish everyone well, and I'm not going to stay safe. I'm just going to say stay healthy.
Carl Dowling, thank you so much for offering us our final closing speech for this 4-part series. Carl is, of course, the chairman of the Australian Business Council of Dubai. We've actually just had one more question come in, and I thought, let's just try and squeeze this in. Hello to Ashok Shah. Ashok asks the question, are they developing digital application for different sectors? What are the incentives we get for setting up a company in Dubai for such activity? I'm not sure who from the panel might like to take that. We are developing a digital application for different sectors. What are the incentives we can get for setting up a company in Dubai?
I mean, it's a good question, but I'm afraid it's a bit of a broad solution. I'm not really sure where it would apply, what technology underpins it, what's the purpose, what is it solving for, what's the business model. Obviously, we're not expecting the whole answer to be there, but just some indication of what this solution does or what is it trying to solve for would be helpful, so we can give a good answer.
So I think when we wrap up the webinar, we'll be doing a bit of digital networking and connecting everybody to all the right people. So some of these questions, which do really require a lot more information and context to be able to answer it precisely, so we can enable that soon. Not too long after today's webinar. In closing, I do want to mention to our special VIP guests that have joined us today, His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Al Sabusi, who is the United Arab Emirates Ambassador to Australia, His Excellency Fahad Al Gagawi, the CEO of Dubai FDI. A very special thank you indeed to both of the excellencies who have joined us today. Mr. Salman Jaffrey, Chief Business Development Officer with the DIFC, Ms. Alia Al Noor, the Director of Marketing with Smart Dubai, Mr. Ghaith Rahman, who is the Senior Project Manager for Programs with Dubai Future Foundation, Ibrahim Ahli, who's the Director of Investment Promotion Division with Dubai FDI. And of course, as Carl Dowling has mentioned a little earlier, a very, very big thank you to all of the production that's gone on behind the scenes, and that is from Lisa Melly, the manager at the Australian Business Council of Dubai, Al Hinton, Senior Advisor at Dubai FDI, Barbara Haggerty, our National Event Manager and Executive Officer for Victoria with the Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Carla Rees, our National Communications Manager and Queensland Executive Officer, doing all the technology for us over these last 4 webinars. Thank you very much to all of the team behind the scenes for putting this together. Thanks to you, our participants, for joining us. As I said, we will be connecting you with all of the right people to get your business and your ideas going. And of course, a very special thank you to our final panel, the 4th in the final series, talking technology for the Dubai FDI Advantage Business webinar series. Take care of yourselves. We look forward to seeing you in the near future. We've thoroughly enjoyed this opportunity to work together with all of our various business groups and chambers. On behalf of the President and National Chairman of the Australia Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Roland Jabbour, he also sends his sincere wishes and congratulations to all the team and all the panelists who have joined. Now, to say goodbye to you today, we're going to leave you with this video, which may have you thinking that it's the 22nd century, but I can assure you it's actually Dubai today. Take care and look forward to seeing you next time.